Russian mill bloggers are finally starting to throw up the white flag. Ukrainian defensive operations have ground Russian forces to a virtual standstill. But how exactly is this being done? Why can't Russia seem to solve it? And what does Russia think it can do to break out of the stalemate? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. Okay, so this is kind of emblematic of the problem that we've seen. And you notice there haven't been that many daily updates because there haven't been that many updates to talk about. And if you are even have a basic knowledge of military tactics, you're going to look across this front line and you're going to ask, what is Russia doing exactly, right? You may remember they, about 4 months ago, had a massive offensive operation outside of Avdiivka, thinking that they could encircle the town and force Ukrainian forces to withdraw and achieve an actual battlefield success, something that Russia hasn't been able to do since the Battle of Bakhmut almost 12 months ago. But you can see now, other than a smattering of artillery strikes, there's been just one offensive action in the Avdiivka region. It seems like they've given up. And that's because, in fact, they have, or rather, the Ukrainians have forced them to give up. And instead, you see they're dispersing their attacks all across the front line, right? But they're not concentrated anywhere. You see, even within this Bakhmut region, the attacks are kilometers apart and even more dispersed here in the north. So what exactly has been happening that Russia can't seem to get its act together? Well, mill bloggers may have finally spilled the beans on what Russia is dealing with. And the fact is that Ukrainian intelligence, Ukrainian observation, Ukrainian reconnaissance is the problem for Russia. What seems to be happening is that Russian forces are unable to amass enough concentrated forces to break in through Ukrainian lines, since Ukrainian units can observe these Russian formations as they're gathering. It may seem sort of preposterous, but remember, gathering anything larger than about 250 to 900 soldiers in one single place for preparations for an offensive is not possible, given the volume of Ukrainian drone reconnaissance. Now, you may be like, but Paul, you can just use some camouflage, man. Like it's not that hard. Well, the answer is it's a little harder than we are appreciating, right? So let's take a look here at the town of Stepova. This is a good example. Oh, let's see if I can get you to the right Stepova. So here we go. Here's the Stepova. This is a site of a number of battlefields, but imagine you're a Ukrainian drone operator. Or imagine you're a Russian commander, then you're ordered to take Stepova, right? So you say, great, let's concentrate 1,000 troops. Let's concentrate 2,000 troops here in Krasnohorivka, a town we control. Well, here's the problem. Ukrainian drones are basically are constantly observing this area. Now, if you want to get 1,000 troops in one place, what does that mean? That means you need 3,000 meals a day for them. You need about 3,000 gallons of water a day. Those troops aren't going to arrive on foot. They're going to arrive in vehicles. So you're going to need several hundred vehicles gathered in a single place. Just trucks alone will be really difficult to concentrate and hide, right? So if you're a Ukrainian drone operator, I mean, where would you hide 500, 600 trucks, tents, fuel, right? And that's nothing. That's just for soldiers to show up and chill, right? If you want those soldiers to actually fight someone, you're going to need artillery. You're going to need round after round of artillery. And all that's going to have to be brought in by vehicles. Basically, those vehicles are going to come in. Look, where would you bring them in via? You basically have 1, 2, maybe 3 roads, 4 if you're lucky, that you can bring these material into your staging area. Well, Ukraine just needs to watch any one of these roads, catch any one of those trucks, and watch where they park. And then they know exactly where to fire their artillery rounds, breaking up the operation. So this is, I think, the core problem here, right? You could say, oh, well, they should just go further back where there's no drone observations. Well, then you've got the same problem. A giant convoy snaking through the town. Also something that the Ukrainians are going to spot easily. You're not going to sneak up on them, right? And so this is the core problem that the Russians are having, is that there's a geographic problem and an observation problem. When you, in this war, and perhaps in modern war, when you are on defense and you're focused on observation and watching the enemy, it's very easy to continually keep them under observation. And given the automation and tools of warfare, particularly Ukraine's advanced artillery fire mission system, the so-called Uber for fire missions, as well as their very sophisticated, very smoothly polished drone operations, where observation drones and attack drones work in concert with artillery and even ground forces to target specific locations, right? As we saw recently in the Bradley video, where the Bradley took out the T-90, no doubt, but that Bradley had a drone observing the T-90's location at all times overhead, and it had multiple FPV drones that hit the Bradley, potentially damaging it long before the Bradley had to engage, or the T-90, long before the Bradley had to engage the T-90. The reason I say this is because this is how the Ukrainians are not getting worse at this. They're getting better without having to try to implement NATO tactics. Instead, now they're implementing Ukrainian tactics, right? Especially on the defense. Drones, and more drones, right? The mill blogger, this is the Russian mill blogger that leaked this sad state of the Russian forces, said the Ukrainians were using drones and targeting small Russian formations, as little as 1 or 2 infantry companies and 10 armored vehicles, preventing Russia from even reaching Ukraine's forward defensive lines. The Russian complained that the only solution the Russian troops have had so far is to dismount and have 10 to 20 infantrymen with a few armored vehicles supporting them at an extreme distance behind soldiers launch these attacks. There's no other way that more soldiers can be concentrated. And basically, you see why, right? Imagine you're in Krasnohorivka. Literally, these houses can only hold 10 soldiers, right? 10 soldiers and 1 armored vehicle. Anything more than that, and there are going to be some observations. Yeah, you could probably get 30 into here, but you're going to see there's going to be 2 armored vehicles. You're going to see a bunch of trash and all this other stuff here. Now, here's the thing. Russia believes, or at least this mill blogger believes, that Russia could make advances and break the stalemate on the battlefield. But there's no way, right, that Ukrainian technological advances will allow Russian forces to concentrate multiple divisions in a single geographic area without Ukrainian detection. But Russian troops could, they believe, gain indirect fire superiority over Ukrainian forces, modernize Russian command and control, and communicate in order to communicate faster to minimize the time between target detection and engagement. But here's the problem that Russia has, right? Indirect fire superiority, well, they have inferior weapons. That's the problem. They have inferior Soviet-era artillery, inferior North Korean shells that do not have the ability to shoot further or more accurately than the NATO-supplied Ukrainian forces. So this is out. And then Russian command and control, right? It relies on, in order to have really fast command and control, you need to have an information battlefield. That means individual soldiers, small unit leaders, need to be able to see and receive orders immediately, right? You can't wait for the brigade commander to tell the battalion commander, who tells the company commanders, who tell the platoon commanders, who tell the squad leaders what they're going to be doing and where they're going to do it. It just takes too long. You need to smooth and flatten the battlefield. And the fact is, that to do that, you have to have very intelligent, very well-educated, very well-trained soldiers. And let's be honest, even Russia would tell you their average light infantry soldier probably doesn't have a high school education, probably better than chance odds that he has an alcohol use disorder or other drug use disorder. And they are likely have only a few weeks of training, meaning that this command and control system that they fantasize about is basically just that. You know, if this would be it would be possible for Russia to win. For example, if they had the military that first arrived at the Ukrainian border. But the fact is, the Ukrainians have ground those best troops by one estimate. About 87% of those initial troops are KIA or WIA, and a lot of their modern updated gear similarly been ground down. So unfortunately, well, fortunately for the Ukrainians, unfortunately for Russia, Russia still has to resort to these meat wave attacks, which produce almost no measurable battlefield gains. You sometimes recently you saw a relatively small, like a little mini gain in near downtown Avdiivka, but that's like the extent of it. You see them kind of push back and forth in empty fields near Marinka, but that's really the extent of what Russia can do at this point. Now, guys, unlike Russia, you don't have to go through your life exhausted and desperate, right? Instead, you can meet your challenges with StrikeGum. Hopefully, you're not a Russian infantryman. Hopefully, your challenges are like working out harder, or having more focus at work, or hustling harder, or just having more energy, right? So if you're somebody who goes to the gas station and spends $4 on one of these energy drinks, right, and gets a massive sugar dose for your 100 milligrams of caffeine, you should check out StrikeGum. 90 milligrams of caffeine in every single piece, 100 milligrams of alpha GPC, 0 sugar. You can check us out, StrikeGum.com. We have a military discount. We have a first-time customer discount. We got a bunch. So you definitely want to check it out, StrikeGum.com. And thanks to thousands of people who have ordered StrikeGum already. Now, here's the thing, right? And I want to prove, just show you guys just how incredibly poor the Russian forces have been executing. Just take a look, right? We haven't done a map update in a long time, right? But this says updated front line south of Avdiivka. What does that look like exactly, right? You can see here that, there's this neighborhood here in the southern part of Avdiivka that looks like Russian forces have advanced into, but you can see that for weeks, the Russian forces have done absolutely nothing. They've achieved nothing despite almost daily attacks into Avdiivka. And then finally, they have there you go. They have a stunning victory in which, after over a month of incurring casualties, they take what appear to be 6 to 12 buildings in Avdiivka. This is typical for the front lines, right? This is exactly what we're used to seeing here. You can see here, Marinka, another Russian offensive zone, ground zero. And you can see, right, they're seizing farmers' fields, man. I mean, I get it. I'm sure that farmer's pissed to have Russian troops digging holes in his crops, but this isn't exactly a stunning march to Kiev here, right? You can see just marginal, just absolute pathetic gains. Literally, they're moving slower than you and I walk, right? I mean, it's just miserable, right? For Russian forces. Of course, if you're Ukraine, you're running a highly efficient defense. You can literally accept these minor, tiny advances for years, right? Grinding on Russia for no reason. As Russian troops become more and more demoralized and Russian logistics become more and more compromised. Anyway, guys, that's all I had. Thank you so much. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. Tell this YouTube algorithm that I make good content and I'm not some clickbait Yahoo. And of course, thanks to all our members of Combat Vet News. See ya.